My fellow Americans, I do agree that I am the best, and you smell like BP. Hello, everyone. My name's Stonsey Boy, and welcome back to Reading with Stonsey. It's been a little bit, since I last read. As a matter of fact, the last time I read was in September. Since then, a lot of things have happened. My father went into the hospital. I have had three exams. I've had a lot of papers due. I've had a lot of writing due. I've had a lot of college, and I haven't had a lot of time to read. My mother's over, which pisses off the dogs, which then makes it hard for me to read my audiobooks. So I've been apologized. Oh, and that whole Young Writers Society mashup and that stuff. That's all happened since then. So I've had literally no time to record these. So I'm sorry if these are gonna be a little sounding weird. Good news is we've had some good updates. As you can see, my Stonesy in the middle is actually now talking with me instead of, just being a stagnant image. And yeah, we've had some good upgrades. We've had some bad truths and bad trivia. But you know what? We keep moving forward. That's the positivity I like to have. So, today we're reading pages 81 to 109, chapters 15 to chapter 19 of WIllodeen. So, without further ado, let's begin. Me? I said, sending her a dark look. Of course you, Bertie said. Speak your mind. Tell them how you feel about the bounty on the screechers. Get it off your chest. She nodded and threw out her arms dramatically. Unburden! Proclaim! May added. I seek the glance at Connor, who seemed to think he was a wonderful idea. My throat clenched at the very thought. I hated speaking in public. I barely spoke up to the safety of the cottage. I couldn't, I protested. Besides, nobody would listen to me. Probably not, Bertie admitted. At least not at first. I groaned. Then why bother? Because these things take time, said Bertie. May nodded. Lots of time. Change doesn't happen overnight, my dear. Well, if it's such a good idea to speak up, why don't you two ever go to the council meetings, I asked. May glanced at Bertie. She has a point, Bird. She does indeed, Bertie pursed her lips. I suppose we do not attend because we are old. And tired, May offered. Bertie nodded, and lazy. Don't forget cynical, added May. Also jaded. But you, WIllodeen, you're none of these things. Bertie made a shooing motion with her hands. Off with you, then. No, the word patently exploded from my lips. I mean, I have work to do. The animals, and we need more wood, and you know there's no point in arguing with us, Bertie said. Best be on your way, WIllodeen. We'll take care of things. I narrowed my eyes. When they started on me like this, I'd usually lost. But they had to know I'd never speak up at the meeting. I wondered if they were trying to get me to spend time with Connor and hope they'd make a friend at long last. Connor held open the door, as if we'd been planning an outing all along. Hurry now, Bertie snapped. You're letting in the chill. Be off, girl. Do something useful with all that anger. Before I knew it, I was standing in the porch with Connor. What? Wait, I said, panicking. I brushed back inside. I was rude to slam the door in someone's face. The disappointed looks in May and Bertie told the answer. I forgot this, I said. By the way of an excuse, I grabbed the puzzler and wrapped it in a napkin. I decided to try one last time. It's my birthday, I said, angling in sympathy. It's not how I wanted to spend it. This is a perfect way to spend it, said May. Now scoot, be gone. Fine, I muttered. Remember, Bertie called, there's magic in your anger. I closed the door behind me loudly. Piffle, I muttered. Connor was standing by the front gate. Did you just say piffle? No, I lied. Figured you went back to get your doozu. He's asleep, I said. I wanted to get this. He held up the screecher in the napkin, wrapping, and he pleased look on Connor's face almost made me forget how little I wanted to be here. They probably need some drive some more, he said. If anything breaks, I can fix it, though. I'll be careful. I gently slipped it into my pocket, and off we went. When I glanced over my shoulder, I saw May and Bertie through the window, looking far too pleased with themselves. Chapter 16. We walked through the center of town without saying a word. To my relief, things weren't as awkward as I expected. Still, I felt there was something more than I should be doing. Talking? Was that it? Should I remark on the weather, the decorations of the fair? Sometimes I felt like everyone in the village had to read the same book about friendship and toss it in the river before I could read it. In any case, it didn't matter. We simply walked the fresh air and the sharp edge it only felt in autumn, though we didn't see the single humming bear when we passed the blue willows of the river's edge. It was Connor who broke the silence. Do you think that I do, making the puzzles, I mean. Do you think it's odd? I suggested. Connor stretched the back of his head. Well, yes, that'll do, I suppose. Odd. Yes, I said. I didn't mean it unkindly. It was just simple truth. People are often so quick to avoid the honest answer to the question. A lot of people at school would say the same thing. He gave a short laugh. Of course, look at you. His voice is gently teasing. You're obsessed with this hideous beast in the land, after all. So? My pa taught me that. So was a fine response that almost any insult, and was remotely possible that I've been insulted. Bertie and May be saying different as the usual thing. Connor had considered the idea. My father says being different makes life more difficult. I watched the leaves in the blue willows swirl, silver and blue, blue to silver. I guess both could be true, I said at last. The village hall was a squat building, nothing much to look at. It had been rebuilt after a fire consumed the original hall, the same fire that killed my family. At the front steps, Connor warned, "Prepare yourself." For what? Silly debates, endless bluster, arguments over nothing. Do you go all these meetings? Most of them. My father thinks it's a good way for me to learn about the world. Sometimes I nap when no one is looking, or sketch or write stories. Connor stared up the stairs. But I hesitated. I think I'll wait here, I said. To be honest, I really don't want to do this. Me neither. But I promise it's not so bad. Come on. He jerked his head toward the door. I could use the company. I took a step, another. One of my shoelaces was loose. I stopped to retie it. Connor waited. I don't much like crowds, I said to my shoe. My hands were still sweating. My face was hot. Who does? Connor laughed. Really, I promise there's nothing to be afraid of, WIllodeen. Well, that set me off. Yes, I was afraid, but there was no way anyone else needed to know. I sprinted up the stairs and left Connor in my wake. Chapter 17. The interior was stuffy and crowded. High round windows provided circles of light. Most people sat on the benches. Pipe smoke twirled. Other voices rose and fell. I usually sit over there, Connor said, pointing in the bench near the right side. In the front of the room, seated at the long, low table, were 5 men and 1 woman. Connor waved, and the man had a curt nod. His father, no doubt. They had the same sharp-edged jaw and lanky build, but Mr. Burke had a stem look about him that made me want to lower my gaze. I recognized the woman at the table as Miss Rossett, the only teacher at our one-room school. She was short and sturdy, with straw-colored hair tied in a braid. This time of year there was no school, so as everyone had pitched in to help with the fair. Although, like many village children, I hadn't attended much longer. Bertie and May left such things up to me, and I had no desire to spend time indoors with others, and when I could be roaming the hills on my own, I doubted I was missing anything. As we settled, a gavel pounded, and the sound echoed in the rafters. The council meeting still with the Commons announced the chair, an older gentleman with a wild state of hair and an immense mustache. That Thaddeus Vilner, Gardner whispered as he pulled a journal and a sharp pencil from the coat pocket. My father says that he has a terrible breath. I tried to hide my smile. The agenda for today, said Thaddeus, is one thing only, and as all we know, our livelihoods are in jeopardy, and our winter may be bleak indeed, unless we determine what has happened to the hummingbirds we all love. This year's things appear to be worse than ever. He scanned the room. Has anyone seen a hummingbird migrate in yet? Miss Rossett held up her hand. A fortnight ago, I saw 2 hummingbirds. They were flying south. I watched them pass right over the riverfront willows and kept going. Thaddeus grimaced. Anyone else? The crowd was silent. But not for long, as Connor had promised. A great deal of talking followed, and not all without hummingbirds. The villagers' words poured out in such force I feared I might drown in them. I hadn't heard this much talk in the past 5 years combined. It made me dizzy and breathless. At one point I decided I needed some fresh air. I moved to stand, but Connor took my arm and pointed to a sketch he'd been working on. It was Duzu soaring through the clouds. It was a good likeness, though. It made me wistful, knowing Duzu would never fly like that again. Smiling, I sat back in our bench and tried to collect myself. I closed my eyes and took long breaths, and I listened. I began to hear not just the cascade of words, but the pain behind them. Every villager's statement held the same feeling, fear. Mostly they talk about the hummingbirds, and if the migration ceased altogether. How could people feed their children without the money from tourists? And there were no other worries, too. What if other fire came this year? The hot autumn winds and the ones we call dragon sighs were blowing with more force than in the years past. Garden harvests had been disappointing, too. How could we plant when we had no idea whether or not it was going to rain? I found myself counting the worries in the way I counted screechers. 7 villagers mentioned the lack of rain. 11 talked about fire. 22 wondered if there were hummingbirds were going. 6 talked about their dying crops. 4 mentioned how the mill upriver disrupted fishing. 2 worried about the railway cutting through the forest surrounded perchance. I felt a bit sorry for all the adults, how hard it must be to worry all the time without children and their future. I heard fear, impatience, and a great deal of frustration. The problem, it seemed to me, was the villagers couldn't decide where to direct their anger. Several blamed the councillors, although it wasn't exactly clear what they'd done wrong. Others said we'd angered the heavens. The few who blamed nature herself were letting us down. And one gruff gentleman carrying a walking stick blamed plain old bad luck. On that, at least, everyone seemed to agree. They agreed far less on what to do, waiting and hoping, and on one hand, or rage and curse, and on the other seemed to be 2 favored approaches. But there was a great deal of squabbling, blaming, and back and forth, and grown-ups seemed to be quite good at. One of the last men to speak came from the back of the room, and I recognized his thick gray beard instantly. "Out well Borden here," he said. "You have the floor, Mr. Borden," said Thaddeus. "I got me an idea. Seems there's plenty of coin in the village coffers." "Actually," Mr. Burke interrupted, "that's not the case." But Outwell forged ahead. "There's money enough," he said. "Why not raise the bounty on pests? Give us something to spend, at least while we wait things out. A lot of us are down on our last coppers." A man near the front leapt up. "If there's money to be had, we should spend it on mending Main Street." "How about the repairs of the school?" someone else called. Others chimed in with more suggestions: a new roof to the village hall, food for families whose crops had failed, a fresh planting of blue willows to attract more hummingbears. "Ahem," Owl said. "Pretty sure I'm the one who's going to talking at the moment." "Go ahead, Mr. Borman. It was saying something about pests," said Miss Rosett. She had a skeptical gaze, but I appreciated. "Creatures are and the like. Rats and nice, too," he suggested. "How about the fair wages to clean up the village? It'd help out a few of us at any rate." And the word screechers, my pulse quickened. I felt the words forming, even though I tried to bottle them up. "I'd argue that screechers are the last of our problems," said Thaddeus. "Hardly any to speak of." "And whose fault is that?" someone cried, and it seemed I was that someone. Chapter 18. Some part of myself, watching the following moments unfold, was shocked. I could see the red face, my frazzled hair, my clenched fists. I could see the crowd, too, aghast in the interruption from a mere child. "You!" Outwell shouted. "You're the Screecher girl, the one who stole my arrow from me. I thought the place reeked. Should have known." Thaddeus held up his palm. "We will have this order in this meeting." But my words kept coming, gushing forth. "We don't have any screechers because of that stupid bounty," I yelled, "and they were harming no one. Why waste your money on killing animals who don't need killing?" "They're not here to discuss the lack of screechers," said Mrs. Burke in a calm voice. "We are here to discuss the lack of hummingbears. We need them. We certainly do not need any more screechers." "Ain't nobody needs screechers," Outwell said, and the crowd snickered. "I'm just saying." Was I still standing? Was I still speaking? I glanced over the crowd and briefly considered fainting, so many faces all staring at me. Connor's eyes were wide, and he made a nod of encouragement. "I'm just saying," I began again, and then faded. "You ought to be saying you plan on replacing that arrow you stole," Outwell muttered. "In light of this digression, perhaps I should remind us all," said Thaddeus, "that we are assembled here to discuss why hummingbears are failing to return." Apparently I wasn't done. Maybe it's us," I said, surprised to learn I still had words left to speak. "That we're the ones who keep changing things," my father's voice whispered in my head. "Truth is, nature knows more than we do." "Sit down, young lady," said Thaddeus. "We have heard quite enough from you." That ordinary part of me, the one that always urging, "Go other way, WIllodeen," reared up, ready to fight. I felt a screecher sculpture in my pocket. Anger boiled in my chest. "These animals! Screechers! There's part of the things you and me." I took a steadying breath. "Look, I don't know why the hummingbears are gone. I don't know why in the world it's changing so fast and so wrong. But I do know that nature's a complicating thing. It's like, I don't know, like knitting a sweater. You pull one string too hard and the whole thing starts unraveling. I'm not saying just not lose things before we get the chance of understanding them, screechers included." Silence, murmurs, laughter. It was time to leave. I walked toward the door, holding my head high, though I stumbled more than once. As I reached for the handle, I turned to see as Connor might be following me, but he was still seated, avoiding the staring glare of his father. I slammed the door for the second time that day. This time I hoped it was rude. Chapter 19. Of course, my treacherous tears arrived as soon as the heavy doors closed behind me. I made my way across the village square, at once been a lively gathering place, but a great September fire had altered it permanently. A stone fountain fed by a nearby stream had survived the fire. It featured a humming bear spitting water in the air, and the base black from the brush and the inferno. From time to time, green doves that spotted near tender squirrels sipped on the fountain. The old carousel nearby sat motionless. For the most part, it had escaped the fire's wrath. I sat next to the sole blue willow in the square that had come through the fire unscathed. Leaning against the smooth barked trunk, I removed Connor's puzzler from my pocket. The twirling tusk, the strange tail, the homely snout. I began to cry. I cried for my ma and my pa and my little brother, for Sir Zert and for Duzu with singed wings. For everyone, everywhere. I cried for myself because I was alone and lonely on my birthday, and because I was odd and unlovable. For the first time, I let myself weep. Angry tears, indeed. They held no magic. There's despair. After a while, I felt calmer, wiped my poor, damp puzzler. Bits of mud and stone had fallen off, and one of its ears had chipped. I had to be more careful, even my tears were clumsy. The meeting finally ended, and I watched the villagers screaming out of the hall. I wondered if they had come to any decisions, what plans they would really make. I hoped to be more fury, to bicker with more energy. They were the grown-ups, they were in charge, and yet I've seen children behave better. I wondered if Connor would notice me. I wasn't too far from the door. I wondered, too, if I embarrassed him in my outburst, no doubt. A few moments later, Connor exited with his father and two other men. They all deep in conversation. Connor's eyes fell on me. I imagined how I must look. Tear-streaked, face, mouth locked in a frown, all alone with my screecher. Connor sent me a smile. Mr. Burke nudged him along as I had red fever, as if my mere existence posed some kind of threat. It was unusually warm. The afternoon sun was putting a persuasive show. I stood and slipped the screecher back into my pocket. Then I took off my coat and sat into the carousel's blue wooden unicorn. In front of the unicorn stood a gold-spotted pony. He was lost his tail on the front hoof of the fire. He wasn't anyone's favorite, so of course he was mine. I climbed on and pretended I could ride where no one else could find me, where I was alone in the world I loved. The world I had remembered it, and the world I wouldn't bring back. Sat there for a long time, letting the sun soak in, waiting for the vein to warm my heart. After a while, I gave up and headed home. I was almost back to the cottage when I remembered that I had left my coat behind with the screecher tucked inside my pocket. When I returned to the carousel, my coat was still there, and so was the screecher, unharmed, untouched, and very much alive. How sad. Very, very sad chapter. It's a very interesting part, but it's still decently sad. What isn't sad, however, is that today we have read pages 81 to 109, chapters 15 to 19. Next time, we will be reading pages 101 to 12. Just kidding. 101 to 124. And chapters 20 to 21. Sorry, it's taking me a second. I haven't done this in forever, ever. Getting back together. All right. Yep. So that was a very sad part of today's story, but we are actually at the end of part 2, and we're going into part 3 next time, so that's exciting. What's even more exciting is now it's time for the Reading Corner of the Day. Doing it up Stonsey's way, bop. Today we are learning about the Hound group. More importantly, today we are learning about the Afghan Hound. But this is a very interesting topic, for we are finally out of the elusive sporting group. We are finally in the next part, the second of 4 chapters of the book. I forget how many. And we are in the Hound group of the book. If you guys do not mind, I'm going to read to you this little scripture about hounds before we get to the Afghan Hound today. So, what it says about the Hound group is that the hounds are one of the oldest groups of dogs, aiding humans by pursuing and catching their quarry. The sight hounds pursue the sight and include the fast-running dogs of greyhound build, whereas the scent hounds pursue by scent and include the more solidly built dogs of general foxhound build. Some breeds hunt by both sight and scent, and few breeds don't seem to like hounds at all. Again, all hounds breeds have in common an independent pursuit of malemi and quarry. As such, they traditionally would not wait for their hunter's direction. They lead the way. Very leading dogs. Very strong and independent. Very strange, some would say. I have a hound dog myself. It's a basset hound and I love him to bits. But that's not what's important. Today, we are learning about the Afghan Hound. Now, the history of the Afghan Hound is that with roots dating to the Egyptian pharaohs, and the Afghan Hound is an ancient breed derived from the group of the Middle Eastern sighthounds. Despite such illustrious roots, most of the Afghan Hound's development is a result of its use of nomadic tribes as a coursing hound capable of providing hare and gazelle meat for the pot. The dogs even hunted in the aid of falcons, with their trained to swoop the quarry. Generations of hunting in the harsh mountainous terrain of Afghanistan produced a fast dog that would also be a good deal of stamina. But most of all, an incredible leaping ability and nimbleness. A long coat protected it from the cold climate. These dogs remained isolated in centuries, hidden in the impenetrable Afghanistan mountains. The first Afghan Hound came from England in the early 1900s. At the same time, these dogs were called Persian Greyhounds or Baruski Hounds. These dogs were diverse a lot and standard for perfection. Modeled with Zardin, a particularly striking dog that resided in more elegant, racy dog of today was created. Popularity grew slowly, with the dog appealing mostly to the glamour set, popularity in the show ring is a faster coming, with the Afghan quickly becoming one of the most competitive and glamorous dogs in the rings. In the 1970s, the Afghan had become a fad breed in the public, but it has since dwindled in popularity. So now that we know the history, we could properly make fun of this dog. I forgot to mention that because, again, it has been a moment. So, yeah, look at him. Looks like if, I don't know, Beyonce had, Taylor Swift's hair color? I don't know. They look very silly, though, and very fabulous. It's very surprising that these are such hounding dogs, but remember, you can only make fun of something, have an opinion on something, or be angry on something if you know the history. Being mad just for the sake of mad is a waste of time. At least that's my philosophy. But yeah, now that we know the history, let's get to the temperament. Well, because let's be honest, we know that hounds are, well, they kind of follow their own rules, but so why would a pretty dog like this do the same? So maybe their temperament's a little different, maybe it's very similar, who knows? Well, the temperament of the Afghan Hound is that despite its glamorous reputation, the Afghan Hound is a hunter at heart, bred to chase down game over rugged terrain. While it maintains a regal bearings inside, it needs daily chance to stretch its leg in a safe area. Its worst trait is reluctance to come when called. It will chase small animals outside, inside, and still coexist peacefully. Though gentle with children, it may not be playful and interactive enough with them. Described by some as cat-like, is independent yet sensitive, and not overly demonstrative. It is reserved with strangers, and some can be timid as a gay, clownish side. A gay, that's what it says. It has a gay, clownish side. I don't know what that means. I'll be totally honest with you. But that is a very funny thing to say about a dog. So, hey, even the people who wrote this book can make fun of the dog for it being a gay, clownish side. I don't know. But yeah, now that we know the temperament, what's the upkeep? This dog has very pretty hair. Probably a lot of upkeep in my opinion, but I don't know. We will know, so now you do. The upkeep of the Afghan Hound is that the Afghan needs daily exertion, either in the form of long walk followed by a short sprint, or preferably a chance to run at full speed in a safe enclosed area. It needs a soft bed, and is best suited as a house dog with outdoor access. A coat requires some commitment, especially when shedding the puppy coat. Most adult coats need brushing or combing every 2 to 3 days. Not as bad as I thought, but definitely in the puppy stage, it's going to need a lot more work. Now, any children, cover your ears, but every adult and teenager, grab your notebook, if you even have an Afghan Hound, because we are about to learn the health. The health of the Afghan Hound is major concerns are nothing. The minor concerns are cataracts. They're occasionally seen with necrotic myelopathy and CHD. Their suggested tests are eye and hips. Lifespan of 12 to 14 years, and it should be noted that they're sensitive to barbature and anesthesia, prone to tail injuries. Interesting. So it's pretty good of a dog. It doesn't get naturally sick or nothing like that. Good with kids. I think this is your type of family dog. If you like having a dog that has the hair of Kim Kardashian. But yeah, that's up to you. Now, before we get to the fun tier list, we're going to learn about the form and function of the Afghan Hound. Well, the form and function is that the Afghan is built along greyhound-like lines, enabling to execute a double suspension gallop and run-down fleet game. The comparatively short back and steep pelvis helped it leap great heights to a turn almost in place. Essential attributes of coursing in rocky mountainous terrain. The large feet gave it better foothold and more restraint to injury in rough ground. The silky coat protected the dog in the cold nights and the high altitude. The Afghan appears dignified and aloof, with an exotic expression and proud carriage. The gait shows great elasticity and spring, and the dog moves with head and high tail. Now for the best part of these, which basically sums up everything I said into a nice, cute little summary, is the tier list. So basically, let me explain this to you, because it's been a minute, so maybe I could be wrong and maybe I could be right. 5 is the best, 4 is better, 3 is average, 2 is worse, and 1 is the absolutely tootly bootly scoobity doopity worst, unless it's for grooming. Now, so for the tier list, the energy level is at a 2, not a lot of energy. We have been dealing with dogs with energies of levels of 3 to 5, so now I think with hounds they're going to be a lot more relaxed. Exercise requirements and playfulness are at a 3. It's pretty normal. The affection level is at a 1. This dog kind of got that I'm too rich to talk to you, you're too poor type of thing. Friendliness towards dogs and other pets are at a 3, so it's pretty average. Friendliness towards strangers is at a 1. He will not like your brother unless you, introduce him first. Ease of training is at a 2, which is pretty nice. Watchdog abilities at a 3, which is really nice. Protection abilities at a 1, so not so much. Grooming requirements is a 4, which I think is the first time we've ever had a grooming requirements at a 4. Cold and heat tolerance are at a 3, which is pretty normal. The weight of a male is 60 pounds, of a female is 50 pounds. The height of a male is 27 inches, and a female is 25 inches, plus or minus 1, depending how they're taken care of. And because if it was feet, we would be living in a world of dog giants. And that's it today, because next time we are going to be learning about... I guess you'll just have to learn. So, hope you guys have a super fantastic, wonderful day. Be polite, be efficient, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you guys next time.